There are moments in life when suffering feels deeper than pain. Moments when the problem is not physical, but existential. A strange emptiness. Anxiety without clear reason. The feeling that something inside is disconnected. Many people try to escape this feeling. Through distraction. Entertainment. Work. Relationships. Social approval. But eventually, silence returns. And with silence, the deeper questions return too. Who am I? What does my life mean? Why do I feel lost even when everything appears normal? Few philosophers explored these questions more personally than Søren Kierkegaard. A thinker who believed suffering reveals the deepest truths about human existence. Tonight, we explore Kierkegaard's philosophy of suffering, despair, anxiety, faith, and the terrifying freedom of becoming yourself. Part 1: The Philosopher of Inner Suffering. Søren Kierkegaard was not interested in abstract philosophy disconnected from real life. He cared about the individual human soul. The internal experience of existing. Loneliness. Fear. Despair. Unlike philosophers focused on systems and logic, Kierkegaard focused on inward suffering. Because he believed the greatest human struggles happen internally. Not publicly. Not visibly. But inside consciousness itself. And perhaps this is why his philosophy still feels emotionally modern. Because many people today secretly suffer inwardly while appearing functional externally. They work, smile, interact socially, yet internally feel disconnected from themselves. Kierkegaard believed this condition was existential, not merely psychological. Part 2: Why Human Beings Suffer. Kierkegaard believed suffering emerges from human freedom itself. Animals simply exist. But humans are aware of possibility. Humans constantly imagine different futures, different identities, different lives. This creates anxiety. Because freedom means uncertainty. Every choice closes other possibilities. Every path creates responsibility. And because humans understand mortality, life becomes emotionally heavy. People realize time is limited. Identity is fragile. And existence offers no guaranteed certainty. This creates existential tension. Humans stand between what they are and what they might become. And according to Kierkegaard, this tension creates suffering naturally. Part 3: Despair. One of Kierkegaard's most important ideas was despair. But despair for him was not ordinary sadness. It was spiritual disconnection from the authentic self. A person may appear successful externally, yet internally feel empty. Why? Because they are living according to social expectation, fear, conformity, or distraction, instead of authentic inward truth. Kierkegaard believed many people spend their lives avoiding themselves. They become absorbed into public opinion, social identity, material success, superficial entertainment. But internally, their deeper self remains neglected. And this creates despair. Not because life lacks meaning necessarily, but because the individual became disconnected from authentic existence. Part 4: The Crowd. Kierkegaard distrusted the crowd. He believed society encourages conformity. People fear individuality because individuality requires responsibility. It is easier to disappear into public opinion. To think what everyone else thinks. To pursue what society values automatically. But Kierkegaard believed the crowd weakens authentic existence. The crowd allows humans to avoid confronting themselves deeply. Modern society intensifies this dramatically. Social media constantly pressures people toward comparison, performance, validation, conformity. Many people build identities around external approval instead of inner truth. And because of this, they become psychologically fragmented. Kierkegaard believed true existence begins only when humans stop living for the crowd. Part 5, Anxiety and Possibility. Kierkegaard described anxiety as the dizziness of freedom. Humans are free to choose. But freedom terrifies consciousness. Because freedom means uncertainty. People constantly wonder. What if I fail? What if I choose wrongly? What if my life has no meaning? This existential anxiety becomes part of being human. Modern society often treats anxiety purely as dysfunction. But Kierkegaard believed anxiety reveals human possibility itself. Only conscious beings capable of imagining different futures experience existential anxiety. And perhaps this is why overthinking feels so intense. Because consciousness endlessly imagines possibilities. The mind becomes trapped between futures that do not yet exist. Part 6, Suffering as Transformation. Unlike purely pessimistic philosophers, Kierkegaard believed suffering can transform the individual. Pain forces inward reflection. Despair destroys illusion. Anxiety confronts humans with freedom. And through this confrontation, people may begin discovering authentic meaning. This does not make suffering pleasant. But Kierkegaard believed suffering can awaken self-awareness. Many people only begin questioning life deeply after heartbreak, loneliness, existential crisis, grief, failure. Because suffering interrupts automatic living. It forces consciousness inward. And perhaps this is why difficult experiences sometimes transform people profoundly. Part 7, The Leap of Faith. Kierkegaard believed life ultimately requires a leap of faith. Not certainty. Not absolute proof. But courage. Humans cannot eliminate uncertainty completely. Existence remains fragile, ambiguous, mysterious. And yet, people continue loving, hoping, trusting, living. This becomes the leap. The decision to engage with existence despite anxiety and uncertainty. Kierkegaard believed authentic faith was deeply personal. Not blind conformity. Not inherited belief. But inward commitment. And perhaps this idea extends beyond religion itself. Every meaningful human act contains uncertainty. Love requires vulnerability. Purpose requires risk. Authenticity requires courage. Part 8, Why Modern People Feel Lost. Kierkegaard feels extremely relevant today. Modern society offers endless distraction. Yet many people feel existentially empty. Why? Because stimulation cannot replace meaning. Humans need inwardness, authenticity, emotional depth, purpose. But modern culture often prioritizes productivity, image, consumption, social approval. And because of this, many people become disconnected from themselves. They know how to perform publicly, but not how to exist authentically. Kierkegaard believed this creates despair on a civilizational scale. The more humans escape inward truth, the more spiritually fragmented they become. Part 9, What Suffering Reveals. Kierkegaard believed suffering reveals the individual to themselves. Without suffering, many people remain asleep existentially. They follow routines automatically, conform unconsciously, avoid self-awareness. But suffering interrupts automatic existence. Pain forces reflection. Anxiety forces confrontation. Despair forces inward honesty. And perhaps this is why suffering feels so existentially powerful. Because it exposes who humans really are beneath distraction. Part 10, Final Reflection. Søren Kierkegaard believed the greatest human struggle is not external success. It is becoming oneself. Authentically. Consciously. Courageously. And perhaps suffering becomes meaningful because it forces this confrontation. Not punishment. Not meaningless cruelty. But existential awakening. Kierkegaard teaches that humans cannot escape uncertainty completely. But they can choose how to live inside uncertainty. With awareness. With courage. With inward honesty. Maybe suffering exists not only to break people, but to force them to ask who they truly are.